Have you ever asked yourself, what is God doing in the world? United States, our founding fathers, several of them believed in God, but they were known as deists. And what's a deist? Deist is someone who believes in God, believed God created everything, but then he just kind of took a laissez-faire approach, took his hands off and said, have at it. That is not the teaching of Scripture. Scripture teaches that God is very involved in what's going on in the world. In John chapter 5, verses 16 and 17, the Jewish leaders were harassing Jesus again because he's breaking the Sabbath rules. He would do things like heal people on the Sabbath. How horrible. And so they're giving him a hard time. And Jesus says this. He said, my Father is always working, and so am I. God is always at work. Well, if he's always working, what is he doing other than keeping the galaxies and the solar systems in place and everything out in space moving the way it should be and overseeing planet Earth? And what exactly is he doing? Well, what he is doing is through his church, through his people, he is rescuing people from hell. That is his mission. Jesus said, we saw it last week, I have come to seek and to save that which was lost, meaning people. And so God is on a rescue mission. He has been on this mission since the beginning. Remember, God created the heavens and the earth. Then he created Adam, and out of Adam, he created Eve. Man and woman, he created them. And he put them in a perfect environment called the Garden of Eden. And you know the story, Satan, disguised as that serpent, came and tempted Eve. The Lord said, you can eat from any tree in this garden, except the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. For the moment you eat of that, you're going to die. Satan came to Eve, you're not going to die. The one tool in Satan's toolbox is deceit, lies. Jesus said, he is the father of lies. You're not going to die. And she was deceived and ate and gave it to Adam, her husband. He willingly ate, and sin entered the world. And each one of us would have done the same thing. Because the human heart rebels against God. It's desperately wicked, the scripture says. Who can know it? We like to do things our way, not God's way. But God had a mission to rescue lost sinners like you and me. He had a mission, and it wasn't just to change the symptoms of our sin, outwardly our behavior. It was to change the root of our sin, which is the human heart. Only God can change the heart. And he has come by sending to this earth a hero. You know, every good movie has a plot, and it goes something like this. There's the person you like in the beginning of the movie, and everything is great, everything is well, and then all of a sudden evil comes to play and the plot thickens, and there's pain and there's suffering and there's evil, and you're kind of on the edge of your seat saying, I hope this gets fixed. And if it's a good movie like a Hallmark, by the end of it, they kiss and make up and everything's great. You know, there's the dark side, and then there's the Jedi fighting it. There's always a theme, a plot. If there's no plot, the movie's boring. You know, funny thing is, there is a grand plan happening in this world. The result of sin is suffering, it is sickness, it's injustice, it's poverty, it's pain, it's war, it's murder, it's all these things. But God has a remedy for this sickness, this disease that hits the human heart called sin. And that was to send a rescuer into the plot. And the Old Testament kind of sets the stage for the hero to come. And then in the New Testament, the hero comes. And when he came, he was rejected by the very people he came to save. He was murdered. And unbeknownst to the murderers, this was in God's plan all along. So how is God going to fix the world? How is he going to fix broken humanity. He's going to do it through his church, through the message they have, the message of hope, the message of life. It's called the good news, the gospel, that Jesus Christ, God's Son, came into this world, lived that sinless life so he could become the perfect sacrifice for our sins. And Christ was crucified, the symbol of Christianity, to pay for the sins of the world. He was buried. He died. He was buried. And 3 days later, he rose from the dead. And now he has started this church that he purchased with his own blood. And the gates of hell will not prevail against it. And the church is people. It's not the nonprofit institution. It's not the building, even though we say, did you go to church today? We know what we mean when we say that. Only biblically, what the church is you and me. It's people. People that have been rescued from sin, that are now on a mission to rescue others from sin. And God's plan until the second coming of Jesus, when he rights every wrong, when he punishes evil, and when he rewards good. His plan is you and me. And there's two things I want to focus on here today to help us understand better, and that is this: every one of us has a mission to the world. It's our little piece of fulfilling the Great Commission. That's what we talked about. And what is that mission? To rescue sinners, to bring the gospel, to be salt and light to this dark, hurting world. And each one of us has a ministry in the church. We have a mission in the community: save sinners, bring the gospel to them. We have a ministry in the church, and that is serve the saints. Save the lost, serve the saints. Save the lost, serve the saints. Save the lost, serve the saints. And I want to ask you a rhetorical question, and that is this: are you on God's mission? Are you in the business of being salt and light? Do you even notice those people that you go to school with, that you work with, that are in your family and friends that you may have that are away from Christ, away from the life of God? Are you praying for them? Are you thinking about them? Are you sharing Christ when you have an opportunity? Are you bringing them to church? Are we partnering together to win them to Jesus? Your mission in the world. And are you serving the saints with the gifts that God has given you? And that's what I want to focus on here today: the gifts that God has given you. We talk about Mission Maine, and here's our mission statement, just in case you haven't caught it yet. It's turning the people of Maine into wholehearted followers of Jesus Christ. What is the greatest commandment? Love the Lord your God with half your heart, with all your heart, mind, soul, strength. We're on a discipleship mission to see the lost saved, to see the saved become wholehearted followers of Jesus, so people love Christ with everything in them, and then, like unto it, the second commandment, right? Love your neighbor as you love yourself. That's what our mission is all about. And so we're doing that. And one of the best ways to reach people, our mission in the world, is through starting churches. I'll give you an example of our Hamden church, which I'm very proud of. They're 2 years old on our anniversary, the 29th, again, our 19-year anniversary. And in just over 2 years, because we started practice services before then, the church has grown from 0 to 422 people a week in attendance at our Hamden campus. Isn't that amazing? And in those 2 years, we've had 106 people fill out a Connect card saying, I have accepted Christ, just at our Hamden campus. And we have had 76 baptisms just at our Hamden campus. Amen. New churches reach new people. And how many know in Maine we need a lot of new churches because we got a lot of unreached people? And so our mission, I remember when we first started the church, standing up, we're in the brick building, 100 people, and that's counting the kids and the pregnant women twice. And I remember saying, Lord willing, someday, like a compass, we're going to have a church. I don't think the word campus was even around then. We're going to have a church in the north, the south, the east, and the west, and Bangor will be like the needle that the compass points on. We're going to have 5 churches just in this area, and then we're going to do what we can to help reach the state of Maine. We're on our way. But you know what I've learned? I heard someone say this. You're going to accomplish a lot less in 1 year than you think, but you can accomplish a lot more in 20 years than you think. I'm learning that it's hard starting churches. There is an enemy. But the good news is, as Jesus said, he will not prevail against the church. God is using the church, people like you and me, on a rescue mission to help people that are dead in their trespasses and sins. They're lost. They need a Savior. They need hope. They need life. They need Jesus. Amen. And we have the privilege of bringing Christ to them. So how is God doing in his work in the world today? Again, the short answer is through you and me, through his church. He uses flawed, fallen people like you and me to bring good news to flawed and fallen people like our neighbors and our coworkers and our classmates. But that is his plan, to use us, to use you. And what I want you to see today is that God wants you to use the gifts, the talents, the experience, who you are, other people. In fact, I love this in Ephesians 2, 8, 9, and 10. It says this. It starts with that famous salvation passage, for by grace are you saved through faith. And that's not of yourselves. What is it? It's the gift of God. Not of works, lest any man should boast. That's salvation. And then in the very next verse, for you are his masterpiece. Would you do this? Look at your neighbor. Look him in the eye. This might be a little awkward. You are God's masterpiece. You're a masterpiece. Just tell him that. It is the truth. You're a masterpiece, a Rembrandt. Created, get this, you're a masterpiece created in Christ Jesus. I love this. To do good works, which Christ, he has prepared in advance for you to do. You're not saved by your good works. You are saved for good works. And God already has these good works prepared in advance for you. We just have to enter into them. And here's where the church comes into play. Your church family. We are here to equip you to do these works that God wants you to do. You are the ministers. Traditionally speaking, we think, oh, the minister, that's the guy with the black shirt and the white collar, looks like a buzzard up there. That's the minister. No, we're all ministers. What does the word minister mean? It means servants. The greatest in the kingdom are the servants. We are here to serve. And you are an important part of this church fulfilling Christ's mission here in Maine. In fact, we can't do it without you. 3 things I want you to see. Number 1 is you bring something to the church, to the team. You are uniquely shaped. I remember when we started our first church in Portland, 1998. I had no white hair and almost no common sense then. We tried to get the church off the ground. As I said before, getting a church started is hard work, and it's hard. And I was frustrated. Have you ever experienced this in life? You have expectations that are here, and your results are here. And that gap is known as frustration. I was underwhelmed on a daily basis. And I went to a conference, it was in New Hampshire, just to try to get some encouragement because I was so underwhelmed by what I was seeing. I want to reach people for Jesus more and more, but it's not working. And I go to this conference, I'm sitting at the pool, and I just made up a conversation with this guy, and I didn't know it was a divine appointment. You ever have one of those? You're talking with somebody, and you don't realize this is a divine appointment. Well, this guy was talking to me, and I'm telling him how hard church planting is. People in Portland, Maine are all crazy. Anyone here from Portland? You're not crazy. It was hard. Portland was hard. And after I talked to him, he said, I work for this guy. His name is Rick Warren. He's out in California. Give me your contact number. Maybe we could help you. I said, okay, cool. I get a call a week later. He said, hey, listen, I want to fly you and your wife to California, get you a Mustang, and put you in a hotel. I'm like, cool. Go out to California. They put us in this beautiful hotel. And they had a little conference training on how to reach people. So I used to think church is all about this. It's all about me and Jesus. Oh, Jesus. Is there a vertical relationship that we must have? Of course. Prayer, reading the scriptures, meditation, that is so critical. The inner life. But it doesn't stop there. That's not the goal, is just to have this communion between you and the Lord. That's part of it. Remember Jesus talking with Peter? Oh, Peter, that D personality, always sticking his foot in his mouth. You married to someone like that? Just hard charging all the time. Ah! He gets pressured. Christ is arrested. 3 times he denies the Lord. Jesus looks at him, after the cock crows twice, you'll deny me thrice. And he looks at the Lord, or the Lord looks at him, and knowing that he had denied him, and he just was so discouraged. He was so discouraged. He was down, doobie-doo, down. He goes and returns to fishing. Jesus endures his Passion Week, his suffering, crucifixion, death, burial, resurrection, comes back and teaches his disciples for a period of 40 days about the kingdom of God. But he reinstates Peter in ministry. You remember, Peter's in the boat. I'm going fishing. He sees the Lord. He jumps in, clothes and all, swims to the Lord. And Jesus gives him 3 opportunities to reinstate him in ministry. And here's what he said. He said, Peter, do you love me? Lord, you know I love you. Of course I do. And what did Jesus say? That I want you to spend more time in prayer. I want you to lift your hands and worship more frequently. If you love me, clean it up a little bit, all right? Now what does he say? Feed my sheep. You ask him again, Peter, do you love me? Lord, you know I love you. Take care of my lambs. 3rd time, Peter, do you love me? Feed my sheep. In other words, Jesus is saying, yes, the way that you demonstrate your love for me is by caring for my people. It's easy, it's clean, it's magnificent to say, Jesus, I love you, and just express that, and we should. But he wants to see the demonstration of that as we help his people and continue to help them. And so here's what we must do. We must not squander what God has given us. When I was out in California, I came across this acrostic, and we have it in our growth track today. It's called SHAPE. It's just an easy way to kind of understand how God has made you. But God has shaped you and made you for ministry. to help people. And why do you want to help people? Because you love God and you love people. The question is, are you doing that? Are you using the shape that God has made and given you to help others? Let me give you a quick rundown of this acrostic. You probably heard it before or may have. The S stands for simply spiritual gifts, those God-given abilities to contribute to the team of rescuing people. He's given you a heart, a passion, something you get fired up about. When you're talking about it, your blood boils because you want people to see and understand. What are you passionate about? He's given you natural abilities. Some of you are good with music or tech or teaching or creative or entrepreneurial, but you're good at something. And he's given you a personality that's uniquely you. Whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, a thinker, a feeler, organizer, a free spirit, whatever your personality type, God gave you that hard wiring. Have you ever thought about that? You're his masterpiece. He has shaped you the way he wants you. And then he's given you experiences in life, some painful, some fruitful, family experiences, vocational experiences, educational experiences. Take the shape that he has made you and offer it back to the Lord and say, God, I'm going to get involved with your mission in the world and with a ministry in the church. And I'm going to do it with the shape that you have given me. I tell you what, here's what happens when we do that. As we're faithful to do that, we become fruitful. In other words, we help others because we're using those abilities, those talents, those gifts, those experiences that God has given us. We help others and we feel that sense of fulfillment. The grace that we have tasted and are given to others, there is a grace that God gives you. Don't squander what God has given you. You are needed in his church. It doesn't matter what age you are, what stage of life. If you're sucking oxygen, God's not through with you. And discover, find, do, enter into those good works that he has prepared in advance for you to do. Amen? And we'll do our best to help you enter into that. Some of those. Let me just read a little from the scripture to you. 1 Corinthians 12:7. A spiritual gift is given to each of us. Why? So we can gloat. Look how talented I am. Why? So we can help each other. God has gifted you, given your shape, so you can help others. And many of you are employing those gifts that you have been given by God. And some of you are like, I want to, what do I do? Well, you can go to a small group training. You can get involved in a ministry here at the church or in the community, but do faithfully what you can to help others with the giftings that God has given you. Here's the second thing. The church needs you. The Team Jesus. The church needs you. 1 Corinthians 12:11. It is the one and only Spirit who distributes all these gifts. God gives these gifts to his children. Why? So we can help each other. He alone decides which gift each person should have. Again, you're his masterpiece. He has chosen you to be good at whatever you're good at. He's given you those gifts. We're going to explore real quickly what some of those gifts are. But you're good at something. You're gifted by God for something. He goes on to say this. Yes, the body has many different parts. Not just one part. If the foot says, I'm not a part of the body because I'm not a hand, it doesn't make it any less a part of the body. Or if the ear says, I'm not a part of the body because I'm not an eye, would that make it any less a part of the body? If the whole body were an eye, how would you hear? If the whole body were an ear, how would you smell? No, our bodies have many parts, and God has put each part just where he wants it. Just like the human body, God has given us 2 ears and 2 eyes and 2 arms and 2 feet and a heart, and God organized, think about it, it's an amazing thing, with the human body, but he's done that in his spiritual body, the body of Christ, the church. He's gifted you and put you exactly where he wants you to be in the body. And so we need to be grateful for that. And not wish, I wish I could sing. Some of you, we can pretty much all sing, just not everyone should sing on the stage. And remember, we just talked it through the 10 Commandments about the 10th commandment, don't covet. Don't want a gift somebody else has. Be happy with who God has made you. I think that's one of the things of aging is you begin to accept, okay, this is who I am and understand better. This is what God has gifted me to do, and I'm going to be cool with that. And I'm going to do the best I can with what I've been given. 1 Corinthians 12, 21 and 22, the eye can never say to the hand, I don't need you. And the head can't say to the feet, I don't need you. In fact, some parts of the body that seem weakest and least important are actually the most necessary. You know, the liver doesn't get a whole lot of credit. If something goes wrong with your liver, the whole body's going to know it. How about the pancreas? You know, if you're choosing to be a body part of the pancreas, something goes wrong with that pancreas. You know it. How about the little pinky toe? You think it's not important until you smash it. Everyone gets to play, and everyone is important in the body of Christ. Regardless of whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, regardless if you can sing or teach, or everyone gets to play. Everyone is an important part of the body. You need to internalize this. You need to understand this, that God has for each one of us a mission in this world, and that is to share the good news, to be salt and light, and a ministry in the church where we're to serve the saints. And we need to be faithful with that. Why? Because he's appointed for us. We've got good work to do. We better get busy doing it. And no excuses. I'm not as important. I'm not needed. That is not true. That is a lie. That goes all the way back to the garden. That is Satan whispering, we don't need you. They don't need you. That is not true. So what are these gifts? And by the way, if you go to Growth Track, first, second Sunday of the month, 11 o'clock in that Growth Track room beside the cafe. We'll kind of walk through some of this with you. But they're basically 4 Bible lists that list out a lot of the spiritual gifts. Romans 12, 1 Corinthians 12, Ephesians 4, 1 Peter 4. There's kind of the lists. Again, Romans 12, 1 Corinthians 12, Ephesians 4, 1 Peter 4. Let me just go down a list of a few of them. 1 Peter talks about speaking and serving. Ephesians 4 talks about pastors and teachers and evangelists and prophets. 1 Corinthians 12 talks about wisdom and knowledge and faith and healing and miraculous powers and prophecy and discerning of spirits and speaking in tongues and interpretation of tongues. Romans 12 talks about prophecy and serving and teaching and encouraging and giving and leadership and mercy. These are all gifts that God gives to his children just as he desires us to have them. And so we need to embrace them. We need to thank God for them. And we need to use these gifts for his glory and for others' good. We need to enter into these good works he has prepared in advance for us to do. Romans 12:8 says this, if your gift is to encourage others, be encouraging. Some of you, that's your gift. You're just like a breath of sunshine. Fresh air and sunshine when you walk into a room. People are just like, they feel, my mother's like that. We go to a restaurant and people are pouring out their heart to her. We go, I told this story before, but I remember we were living in Portland and I was bivocational. We had started the church and I was selling moving jobs for Atlas Van Lines, and I go up into the mountains of Maine, and Mom wanted to go with me, so she takes a ride with me, and she's always praying, and she's an encourager. She's happy wherever she goes. She's just looking for people. She'll radar, beep, 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 beep. Where's the person hurting? Let me encourage them. We go in this house, and I'll never forget, it was just a dive. And the woman looks like she'd been, probably drugs pretty hard, and never forget it because she had a Rottweiler named Ratchet. I don't like Rottweilers. I've had 2 run-ins with him. This is one of them. He had a spike collar. I'm surprised he didn't have a little Harley jacket on him. And I'm talking to her about her moving job, and all of a sudden I feel something warm going down my leg. And I look, and sure enough, Ratchet thought I was a fire hydrant. It was disgusting. I just wanted to get out of there. We're getting ready to leave, and my mother, her heart went out to this woman. The Bible says, follow the way of love and eagerly desire spiritual gifts. When your heart goes out to somebody, follow that love, and God will use you. Her heart went out to her. She stops, and she said, can I just pray with you? I'm like, oh no, let's get out of here. They have a Rottweiler. Before we left, that woman was in tears, and Mom prayed for everything you could pray for, including her salvation and her family. And I'm just like, she just encourages people wherever she goes. How has God gifted you? Use that. Meet a need. Heal a hurt. Follow that love in your heart for others. In Jesus' name. And you'll make a difference for him. You'll enter into those good works that he's prepared in advance for us to do. It'll bring him glory, and it will be a blessing to others. And you'll show Jesus, I love you. I'm taking care of your people. The final thing is this. Not only does the team need you, but you need the team. You need the church. Can you imagine a tuba player? You know what? I'm going to be a tuba player, but I don't need a band. Imagine a soldier. I want to be a soldier, but I don't need anyone else in the army. I'll take them on myself. What do you think, you're James Bond? Imagine, I'm a football player, but I don't need a team. I can take all 11 myself, both sides of the ball, no problem. Or even worse, can you imagine saying, I want to be loved, but I don't need a family. And people say, I want to love Jesus. I love Jesus, I love God, but I don't need the church. It's not logical. It doesn't make sense. Can you imagine, men, don't do this, saying to your wife, baby, I love you. I just hate your body. Don't ever do that. But that's what people do to the Lord all the time. Jesus, I love you. I just hate the church. You're insulting him. You're saying you don't love his body. The body he died for. The church. It's what God is doing in the world. It's what God is up to. It's what God is working through you and me. And each one of us, we have a mission in this world to reach lost, hurting, broken people. And we have a ministry in the church where we serve the saints, help one another, encourage one another. So we better get busy doing it. Amen. And so many of you are, and I'm so thankful for you. Others, you need to get in the game. Get off the sidelines. Get back to work. Jesus said, my Father is at work and I am working too. And while we have the opportunity here on earth, it's our responsibility. Amen. Would you bow your heads with me? Father, you are so good to us in that when we were dead in our trespasses and sins, you reveal Christ to us. Somebody was on a mission, your mission, and told us the good news about Jesus. And then you did your work in us. You drew us by your Spirit. You revealed Christ to us. We called on your name and were saved from our sins. When that happened, Lord, you deposited in us gifts. Gifts that would be a blessing to others for help and encouragement. And Lord, all this you said you planned in advance. And Lord, we want to enter into these good works. Help us to do it. Lord, help us as a church team, staff, to help your children be effective ministers to the saints and on an effective mission to, Lord, to the community, to the world. And may we see Christ glorified, honored, made big here in the state of Maine. Bless all the churches preaching the gospel. Bless your church, Lord. I thank you that the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. And I thank you, Lord, that you have called us out of darkness into this marvelous light. And friend, if that's you here today, that you understand, you know what? I believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. I believe that he is Lord, that I am not. I understand I need a Savior. Then call on his name. The scripture tells us in Romans 10 and 13 that whosoever shall call on the name of the Lord shall be saved. You just pray a prayer. God, forgive me of my sins. I turn from them and I turn to you. Be my Lord and my Savior. I pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen.